Hello and welcome everyone on today's webinar. Today we'll speak about our brand new release, Newired 24.0. My name is Jiří Valek. I lead a product management team at Newired, and I'll be speaking about what the team has been working on over the last 3 months since the version 23.3. It's again a great addition to our portfolio. I'm happy that we were able to release it in time, early January. It's end of January. It's the time when everyone should be back from vacation. We have time to officially speak about new features. And some of you existing customers, you might have already be silently updated to the version 24.0. So without any further introduction, let me jump into the great new capabilities that we were rolling out in this major version. The first one is about the new toolbar editor, streamlining content creation. So, for many, many years in the past, we are concentrating on the great user experience, not only for all of the end users who are using the Newired guidance daily to be guided through their standard operating procedures, but also for the content authors to be able to really easily create a content. And we have been passing several independent reviews, and we know that this is working pretty well. But let me just show you what and how we improve the authoring concept in Newired. So I've opened my Newired editor. By the way, even though it's a new version 24.0, I did not need to install anything because through our auto update technology, the system has automatically connected to our brand new Newired server and downloaded all the necessary components. For the sake of today's presentation, I'm using slightly more complex target application, not our CRM system, but I'm using the Siemens ALM system for product lifecycle development. And what I want to show you is how easy it is to create a journey to add a user to the project. So there is something like a project. Here is a project drive pilot. Here's a project e-library. It's a target application. You don't know. It doesn't matter. To create a user, I need to click here on administration, go to user management, users, and add a user to the project. So let's start and create the journey really quickly. So create a new journey, how to add user to the project. What we see here is that there is some duplicity. We see that there are some buttons on the right side, but also some buttons on the left side. Let's start to use the top header panel. So we want to create a callout. We want to select this particular element. And now what you see here is that I have directly some controls in the header that can allow me to change the transition, put some spotlight and animation. Next change is that we want to click on administration panel. So again, click callout, select administration. We want the user to click on it. We want to put there a spotlight, maybe again some animation. You see, what I'm doing is I don't need to open this big editor to set even the properties for a given step in the journey. So again, select user. We want the user to click on it, put animation, spotlight. Let's move it here to the right side. And then we want the user to click on users. So again, we want to click, spotlight. Let's move it to the right side. And the last, but not least, we want the user to click here on the user's screen. So again, click, spotlight, and that's it. So with this top-level header, we simplify the most common actions, which are really like to mark something as a spotlight, as an animation. It's also much easier now to reselect an element. So I have a direct action to reselect an element a direct action to open the selection criteria. So this in-place toolbar makes the process of creating new journeys or tips much, much faster. It's a user experience type of capability. Nothing has been added from the functional point of view, but from non-functional user acceptance point of view, the process to create journeys is just more smooth and faster. So we've created a journey. And this journey will be a foundation for our next big enhancement to our portfolio that really speaks about URL processing and custom tracked URLs, and not just for analytics. So if you go back to our editor, what we see is that I've just created a journey to add a user to the project. The journey has been connected with a specific project called eLibrary, but we want this journey to work anywhere. Here in the eLibrary, but if I switch to Drive Pilot and I run the journey, it should work the same. Click here, go to administration, select user management, select users, and now I can add a user to the project. I mean, technically, this is what the guidance should look like. I mean, we are really training people on how to get to a specific page and where to find a button to add a user to the project. But, you know, Newired is not only about training people, about teaching someone how to do something. The digital adoption is also about making sure that your end users are as much efficient as possible within the target application. It's in case there are some use cases that I run very rarely, like maybe I add a user to the project just twice per year. I don't need to be trained on that. I just want a digital assistant that when I click on it, it will help me to do it fast. So I don't want to learn how to do it. I need the system to help me performing my task as quickly as possible. And that's exactly what we understand, and we need to find a solution how to provide a journey that can automate some steps for me. So I've created before a journey here, add user new. And if I click on it, you see we have been taken automatically to the user's page. It tells me that to add users, you need to do it in administration on the user's page. If you don't know how to get to administration, here is a journey that I can run and it can help me. But the point is that very often I don't need to be trained how to open administration. Maybe I already know. I just want to get to the page where I can easily click this button, add user to the project. And you say, oh yeah, I was always able to simply set up a URL for my journey. And when there is a URL on the first step and I run the journey, the system automatically gets me to this page. But if I, in the previous version of Newired, if you would set up the specific URL, and this URL says that I'm in the context of the eLibrary project, this journey will not help you to add a user to another project. So if I'm in a Drive Pilot project and I run the journey, how does it work that I'm keeping the context of a Drive Pilot project? And that's exactly what we call a URL processing, that a system can understand for the target application in which context I am. Now I'm in the context of a Drive Pilot. So it actually somehow understands that when I run this journey, it shouldn't change the project, it should keep the project, but it should still get me to the specific page. Once again, if I'm in a Drive Pilot project anywhere and I just run a journey, it gets me automatically to the user's page in a Drive Pilot context. So I can skip all these 5 steps to open the site panel, open the administration, open the user's management section, open the user's page. We can skip all those 5 steps. We can automatically get the user to the right place in the system where he can fulfill his task or her task or use case. This is really just this very, let's say, simple example, but on this example, you can see that something that, I mean, previously had 5 steps, now it has only 2 steps. And even the first step is maybe, let's say, not necessary, so we can reduce 5 steps to 1 step. And this automation is exactly what can help the people to be more efficient, to skip the routine parts, to search for some documents, so to search for some pages. You can get to the place and focus on the work to be done. But of course, to enable such a functionality, the question is, what is the context? And the context needs to be set up, okay? So for that, we need to go to the administration. I'm opening the portal for our site called Polar Demo. Why I'm using this Polar Demo? Because honestly, in our CRM demo, we don't have really any specific context. There is nothing like a project, like a folder. So I can demonstrate this functionality on top of our standard demo environment. That's why you use this Siemens application to demonstrate such a capabilities. And here, under the settings, under the advanced settings, there is a section called URL processor. And here we have 2 options. We can actually use, or you can be smart and write a specific add-on for a particular target application. So here we have a Polarion URL processor, which is a specific thing designed to, without any configuration, you can just enable it and start using it as you have seen. But there are also other processors like regex, pattern URL processor, which can, let's say, search for specific elements in the URL and replace them. In this case, I would copy the ID and I would need to configure in my advanced settings a different URL processor. So I would use the pattern URL processor and I would need to prepare the regex patterns. And this is a technical task, and we admit it's a technical task because honestly, it's an automation. It's some level of intelligence that needs to be plugged into the system. So for now on, what I'm saying is that you have 2 options. Either use the pattern URL processor, and for pattern URL processor, we can help you to define all those pattern matchers, or you can even use the JavaScript engine and build a custom plugin specifically for your target application. Once you set it up in the portal in the advanced settings, then everything is 100% transparent, and I don't need to do anything when I'm writing or creating my journeys. You know that we speak a lot about the so-called application profiles, about the fact that Newired can be very, very fine-tuned for target applications, for the target applications that we don't even know upfront. So the beauty of that is that all of what I'm saying is implemented independently on our product. So if you are using a product that you have developed internally, you can write your own URL processor that takes a context somehow, or you can use the regex-based standard default processor. But this is really making life for the complex platforms, let's say, much efficient. And if you don't have the technical resources to set up such a, let's say, such a configuration, let us know and we will do it for you. The point is that you need to understand it from the end user perspective. You want to avoid using Newired only as a tool to guide people. So again, click here, select administration, click on users here. Now I can click here. 5 clicks to get to this step. This is a journey that can, of course, run in any context. This is great. But if you want a journey to automate these steps, so if I click here, I'm automatically taken to the page. And the page is not static, based where I was. So based if I was in the context of dry pilot, or if I am in the context of anything, it always works. The context is being showed. And that's something which is really advanced. It's a technique that we explore more with our, let's say, key customers, how to automate more of the routine tasks. And we are here to assist. I'm sure that we'll receive more and more inquiries on our in our support system to help you configure such a, let's say, smart environment for your target platforms. Good. Next is the contextual in-app help. There are lots of control elements at Newired. So, I've been already, let's say, speaking a lot about about different options that you can use in the, let's say, in the editor. And you know that there are so many different switches and options and parameters. We, of course, try to, let's say, make the system as human friendly as possible, make it really intuitive. And I really hope that we are doing well. But in addition to that, of course, we need to explain a lot of information to the end users. And this was, let's say, necessary in the editor, but there was even bigger, let's say, need to provide you with really more explanation about all what we provide to you. And this was part of our analytics module. Then, with our analytics module, which is, as you know, optional, how much is it personal, how much personal content we collect, no personal content at all, or anonymized personal content, or fully user-aware personal content. But what was really very unclear to our end users were many of our metrics that we collect. Like some of them are pretty obvious, like engaged users maybe, but some of them have been unclear about what is the user engagement or what is the journey issue. So this is a sum of journeys, failures, and drop-offs. So that the issue means that the journey fails or the user decides to not continue. Launch means that they really start the journey from the launcher. So what we are doing is that we make sure that everything what we present, any piece of information that you see in our analytics, no matter we speak about analytics in our journeys, playbooks, page views, so that we can also measure what are the people, let's say, doing not only with our target guidance, but also what are the people doing in a target system. So if I'm using HubSpot CRM, I can measure how are the people using our journeys, or use the page views to measure how are the people using the HubSpot itself. And of course, we measure several statistics, and now every KPI, every information on the screen is well described on the within this tooltips that appear everywhere around the portal implementation. Last but not least, we run in a web environment. And the web environment, even though it's here for 40 years, it's still evolving and changing. And today, most major browsers are being operated by the let's say, Google engine, by the ChromeKit and other libraries from Google, and they also provide us with a platform to distribute a so-called browser extension. What is the browser extension? The browser extension is a tool that can help you to deploy Newired for end users. So there are two options how to deploy Newired, as you know, probably. One option is that you use the so-called snippet. So even without any installation on the client side, you have this help system available within your target application. Or you cannot touch it, or you want to install it only for a limited set of users. And for that, we have the so-called Newired extension. And the Newired extension is based on the Google API. And unfortunately, these APIs have been changed a lot recently. This enforces us to, let's say, to completely redesign and rework our extension, similar as any other competitor in the digital adoption platform space. We did the same. We need to redesign our extensions through the changes of these APIs, which has also some implications based on the security context of your application. Mainly, if you would need to use the so-called plugins, we need, in some cases, to merge plugins into our extension itself. So there are cases that whenever you want to write a specific plugin, and the specific plugin would operate in a very tight security controls, you would need to share the plugin with us, and we will merge this extension or we will merge this into our extension itself. This is only the case in case you are not using the snippet. 90% of our customers are using snippets for the deployments. Most of the time when you use the browser extension, it's in the early phases, and in that moment you don't need those custom plugins. Even if you use the browser add-on, it doesn't mean that you would need to abandon using the custom plugins, because it is also based on the let's say based on the some specific, let's say, security header provided by your target application. So just the long story short, 99% of our customers are not affected at all. In very rare cases, for some very highly controlled secure apps, we may need, in case you would need to use customization, to plug such customization into the extension itself, or we help you to build a clone of our extension that will be really specific to your environment, to your code, to your target application. But this is nothing that we can, let's say, avoid. This is simply based on the fact that Google has decided to really strengthen the security of what the extension is able to deliver. But for all the clients that are not writing the custom extensions, nothing has been changed. And I would say that 95% of our customers are never writing any specific plugins, and they just get with what we provide out of the box. So just to conclude what we have seen today, we started with focusing on the content authors for being able to really create the journeys, the tips, without opening this big pop-up dialog with all the properties, but have everything controlled with a smart header in the editor. Second, we spoke about contexts and URLs, about the fact that we run in the browser, and very often, I mean, in the complex systems, there are contexts. It could be a context whether I'm a supplier or if I am a vendor in the SAP system. It could be the context of the project in the SAP system. It could be a context of a project in Polarin system. It could be a, let's say, the context can be anything in an application area. And with our URL processing capabilities, we can ensure that the journey can get a user to a specific point while persisting a context So, I mean, it can run in the context where the user really is. This will be even improved for the ability to start journey in the middle in a next versions. Or by the way, this works even now that if I run a journey in the middle and it uses the same context and same URL processor. Then we spoke about the managers who are reading the information in our portal, or authors using our editor, that we knew that there are so many options and so many metrics and so many KPIs that we provide that we need to describe them better. And we were rolling the informations about what do we presenting on the screen across all the components of our solution. And last but not least, we live in an environment that is also affected by the third-party components, in this case, the Google APIs. We follow the Google trend to make the system or web platform considerably more secure with some restrictions. And we have implemented the changes necessary to the Manifest v3 model, which is by 99% not affecting you at all because we adhere to this secure APIs. But in some rare cases, if you would need customization, you would need to work more closely with our team. That has been the new version 24.0. And let me check if this was self-explanatory or if you would have any questions. Is it possible in version 24 to export analytics data? If not, do you plan to add this feature in the future versions? Honestly, I don't know what type of customer you are, if you are on-prem or hosted, but technically, if you would need to export the data from Newired into, I don't know, the business intelligence reporting component to something where to your data warehouse, that you actually use it for some standard organization-wide reporting, you would be definitely able to, let's say, export it from our SQL database. If you are on-prem, for sure. If you are hosted, I would definitely advise you to speak to our support, refer to what I just said, because I think that it would be possible to export it from the database in the format that you can import to your system, maybe once per night, and this will be stored in some particular folder. So I'm sure that this is possible through the custom, let's say, solutions. If you speak about being able to manually export it, for example, to Excel, you don't have this in the current moment, even though it definitely makes sense, and that's something that we would definitely like to do in the future. How does the URL processing feature interact with single-page applications routing? The question is, let's see, what I was presenting was a single-page application. Technically, this was, if you go to Newired, this is an application where everything, what is happening is behind this hash symbol. So there is always just one page, and everything else runs on the client solely. So it is, let's say, single-page application, but it's a smart single-page application where the context is readable from the URL, and it's also possible to control, let's say, the page or the application through the URL. So some single-page applications work nicely with URLs and can be also controlled by what you put into the URL, even though technically there is no server request and it all runs on the client. There are applications that don't use the URLs at all, even though it's a client-side URL, so it's just the hash without any server re-render. The page was loaded just once and everything is on the client. So there are apps that are using the hash symbols, there are apps that not. our URL processing, our feature is called URL processing, and it's based on the fact that you can write a handler that actually takes the URL. From the URL, we get a context, and whenever we want to change the, let's say, URL, there can be a code that specifies the new URL for a given context without, let's say, running it, rerouting it on the server. If it is not possible to do it through the URLs, there would still be an option to use the actions and have the specific JavaScript actions, which would be able to control such a behavior as well. So again, this is something that you would need to be more specific and speak with our support, how it works on top of your specific target application. But in general, the application we have chosen today is a single page application. It's loaded once, the page, and then everything runs on the client. But in this case, it's still controlled through the URL. It may or may not be friendly for your app. We would need to check together. You spoke of Chrome browser. Can you confirm Edge is now also supported? Yes. The Edge is also supported. Yes. If I understand you correctly, if I have the URL processor plugin, I can start a journey from a particular position within a specific page action without performing, say, the first 5 steps that may be on a different pages. Is this correct? Yes. So basically, and let me just recap because it's really a significant feature, okay? The main goal is that when I have a journey, the journey for ages, let me just delete this. No. So the page or the first step can be associated with a particular page. What it means, if I disable any URL processing and I have the URL here, whenever this journey is being started, it automatically gets the user to this particular position in the application. So by default, even before the version 24.0, if there was a URL on the first step of the journey, or if there was a URL on anything which is marked as so-called intermediate starting point. What is the intermediate starting point? You remember that's like a checkpoint in a game. So if you have the journey like that, you know that then you can have the did I save that? Yes. Refresh my site. Reload site. Let me just do it quickly. Yeah. Here I can start it from the beginning, or I can start it from any step in the middle. If I go here, click here to click add users to project. So, and then I have another step, for example, here, select user, whatever. What I'm saying is that there are some steps which are significant. Significant is the first step of a journey because that's where the journey's started, or the journey can be also started from anything which is marked as the intermediate starting point. The intermediate starting point means that the user can start the journey from this particular step. Click here, I get to this page, and you see I can just click on it. If I start journey from the beginning, it starts here on that step. If I go to eLibrary and I run it from here, I am in the eLibrary context. If I run it from here again, it remembers that I'm in the eLibrary context. How does it know? Because it's in the URL. So some steps are associated with the URL. Without URL processing, when we navigate user to this step, the system will change the URL. So this means that I was always able to write a journey that opens a particular, let's say, context or a page. But in the past, that was static. So it has if I would have a journey at a user, it will always go to the project e-library. And in this project, it will open the user's page here. But we want to have this dynamic. If you're in another let's say context in a document library, and I click on the second step, I want to do it in the document library context. So this automation was always possible, but before, the automation was statically defined. So if there would be just one page in the system, it was always possible. But with the URL processing now, you can actually guide the people through the context. But with some applications, you know that you may have, for example, some parameter like a session ID. And that was a problem, because if there was a session ID parameter here, and you would be enforcing the session ID, it would mean that when we remember the URL with the session ID, when we navigated the user to the session ID, this would cause a system to break. So that's again a concept that can be now covered, because we can say, okay, if there is a session ID, take the current session ID and replace the session ID that we have remembered in the moment we were creating the journey. So once again, this system shall be used in cases when you want the people to get them to a particular URL or place, and the URL is either changing from one login to the other, from one location to the other, from one user to the other user, or from one context to the other context. But again, I spoke a lot about that. We should probably, let's say, have a dedicated call with you, because I have probably 3 different clients who are asking for it. So please check with our support. We will explain more direct call on top of your specific app. Good. So these were the questions. Thank you for them. Thank you for your interest. As I said, let's stay together connected via our support, and let's all, let's say, benefit from the great features that we have launched recently in the version 24.0. Thank you very much, and have a great day.